Hey guys, here we go into round one, maybe round two and three film study of David Lemieux versus Mr. Guerrero here, Fernando Guerrero. He's a southpaw, and this is in preparation for his fight against Billy Joe Saunders, which I expect to be probably a pretty fantastic fight. David Lemieux is like a pretty aggressive, come forward kind of puncher style. He has some boxing skills, but he's not the greatest at setting his shots up, which is one of his faults. Something I did a little film study on him versus Curtis Stevens for like punch technique, as well as a little bit of him during the his fight for when he fought Golovkin in preparation for Golovkin versus Canelo. But not the greatest at setting his punches up, not the greatest at controlling his opponent after. So his offense and defense both need work so that they're not dangerous types of offense. But what we're going to look at is we're going to look at his style for fighting southpaws, and then we're going to try to compare that to the style of fighting that Billy Joe Saunders has when he fights orthodox fighters, and kind of figure out, how we expect the fight to play out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So Lemieux coming out pretty active jab right there, right? If you look at it, like right away coming out, feinting, and look at how far away he is with that feint, right? Very active guard, right? And the reason that it's important to have an active guard, I talk about this a lot, like fighters like Amir Imam, right? Is Adrian Granados that good of a fighter? Not really, right? He's okay. He's not bad. He trains hard, he fights hard, he works hard, he's got heart. But he's not that great of a fighter. No offense, Jazz, it's all right. And but Amir Imam, for all intents and purposes, people thought was going to be like the next big thing, at 140, huge puncher, blah, 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 whatever. But Adrian Granados was lighting that boy up. And that's because he doesn't have an active guard at all. His head is always in the same spot. He has no head movement. He's not moving his lead hand. He doesn't do any of the things that allow you to control the distance between you and your opponent. And what I mean by control the distance is stop your opponent from feeling comfortable from walking into it, right? And if you notice right here, right away, his opponent shoots a jab at him, and what does Lemieux do? He starts getting active in his guard, moving his hands around. And then the next jab that he shoots, look at how much farther away he is from that than when he was with the first jab. I guess it's pretty close. But this style of movement is going to allow Lemieux to control the distance between him and his opponent. Look at how much more hesitant he is to come in because he doesn't know if Lemieux is setting up a shot, right? And then Lemieux comes in, off of those lead hand motions and just shoots a couple of jabs. And his opponent by that point is aware that he's trying to set shots up. Catching the jab, decent job at that. Good active guard, again, not being stale. And look at how difficult it's making it for his opponent to find a rhythm to kind of throw punches at him. He does wind up landing a jab to the body right there. And David Lemieux shows that he's actively looking to counter those shots, right? And in the amateurs, when you're a good amateur, a lot of times you learn never to let your opponent get the last shot. It's a very popular strategy, and it carries over very well into the professional ranks as a kind of catch and counter style. Even if you get hit in the face, right? If your opponent throws if you're both left-handed, right, or you're both orthodox fighters, if your opponent throws a left hand, you counter with the right hand. If your opponent throws and you just basically counter with the same, with a punch that's on the same side of the body as they just threw, because they'll be in less of a position to counter or to defend themselves, especially in the amateur ranks, because nobody looks to control their opponent after. It's always like the first thing you go to a gym, and the first thing that an amateur coach is going to tell you, when you throw your punch, bring it back as fast as you can. And you see here David Lemieux trying to take advantage of that style rather than controlling his opponent like Guerrero should, right? Or using responsible defense. Even though he does take a step back, he should be taking it off at a different angle. But David Lemieux trying to counter over the top of that jab. Not a lot going on. And it's interesting, David Lemieux, normally a very active fighter, right? Normally very come forward, throws a lot of punches. But against a southpaw, it looks like so far he's not very active. I don't think he's thrown a single punch on his own, but he is showing that he's looking to counter and take away his opponent's jab. Very interesting style. Reminiscent of, who was that fighter? I just did a film study on them. Guerrero, right? Rather than making his opponent, setting up his own punches, he's looking to take advantage of his opponent's mistakes, right? And take advantage of the times where his opponent gets out of position. This is a little different because Guerrero wasn't actually countering James Dickens. He was just trying to bait the lead hand away from his face so he could punch over the top. But very similar situation in this regard, in which but it's interesting because also Vasily Lomachenko versus Gary Russell, right? Gary Russell was using his lead hand very effectively to keep Lomachenko from setting up his shots, constantly making him reset. But Lomachenko started to begin to slip the jab and then counter over the top. And once he was able to take Gary Russell's jab away, he was actually able to set his punches up after that. But it's interesting because I'm not sure if David Lemieux is going to look to pressure his opponent even after he takes his lead hand away, right? So we'll have to see where David Lemieux goes from this, because so far it looks like he's only trying to counter his opponent's jab. There we go. So the next thing we learn, right, about boxing is, the most important part is, for professional fighting is, you want to attack your opponent when they're out of position. And a lot of times why fighters are kind of stale and why kind of fights are kind of stale is because they're both waiting for their opponent to go first, right? So that person is out of position and you can counter their punch while their weight is transferred and they're not in a position to defend themselves. And this is very similar to what Lemieux's doing here, as he gets his opponent on the ropes, and now his opponent can't move away from him anymore. He can only continue to move into an arc that's within Lemieux's punching range and punching position. And Lemieux is able to let offense go there for free, basically. And it's not really important that he doesn't land it, but this is stuff that we'll be looking for when we watch Billy Joe Saunders fight against, I think we're going to be doing it on Chris Eubank Jr., and we're going to look to see how many times and how often Billy Joe Saunders winds up on the ropes, and how often he uses his jab so far, because those are the opportunities that David Lemieux is going to be looking to punch so far. And again, so interesting, very interesting, right? So what a great job that his opponent is doing right here. So his Fernando Guerrero has picked up on the fact that David Lemieux is trying to counter his jab, so he steps, takes slight lead foot dominance, a slight positional advantage. David Lemieux goes to catch the jab, right? And then Fernando Guerrero shoots the left hand, the straight left hand, instead of throwing the jab, right? Great setup to the shot. He gets off the line enough so that he's not hit by Lemieux's counter jab. And I can't really tell if Guerrero lands the shot or not, but that's not the point, right? It doesn't matter. It's just that he's looking to set this stuff up. So far, pretty smart fighting from Mr. Guerrero right here. And we'll see. We'll have to see where David Lemieux goes from here. Catching the jab again, moving forward, and again, this is the benefit to making your opponent. This is the benefit to making your opponent react to your punches, right? This is why counterpunching is so difficult against a very seasoned and professional fighter, is because they can bait you and walk you into other shots. Anyway, David Lemieux trying to press forward using some feints, and again, his opponent able to control the distance just with a jab, and it's interesting because at first I thought that David Lemieux was going to be the one controlling the distance with his very active guard, but if we notice, his guard kind of slowed down. He's not as active in it. He's bringing his hands up and bringing them down, moving side to side, but not super active. He's kind of found I think he's found a style in which he's comfortable in looking for offense against his opponent, and he stopped looking for an opportunity to press forward at this point. Again, yeah, sitting right in front of him, you know, his opponent shoots this jab and he tries to counter that the shot after. I think he was thinking maybe his opponent was going to shoot a 1-2, so he's going to try to catch him with the jab on the second punch. There we go. So I wonder what the tell is right here. David Lemieux doing a pretty decent job of not walking into that shot and ducking it, and again showing that he's looking to counter his opponent rather than lead. You know, so this would be a really interesting thing to look for when we watch the Saunders, like I was saying. But his opponent is so far doing a very good job of taking an angle and pivoting out using defensive responsibility, in spite of the fact that after he shoots this hand, he doesn't control David Lemieux at all, and that's why David Lemieux is able to get that punch off in the first place, right? So after throwing that right hand, or that left hand, what he wants to do is he wants to take it and spin it, put it onto Lemieux's neck, or put it onto Lemieux's collarbone, and kind of push off of him while he pivots and turns out and takes the angle that he does to further mitigate David Lemieux's ability to counterpunch him. And we'll see, and you'll see later on in the fight why that's so important. There you go, his opponent finding his distance, right? And again, being very smart defensively and being able to take that angle out there. You know, and I think that David Lemieux at this point is kind of just assuming that it's going to be a jab, and he's very easily able to walk him into this this left hand. And I'm not exactly sure if there's more reason to it. So far, it looks like his opponent is kind of getting low when he shoots the left hand. Let's go back and take a look at that other left hand. No, not getting super low. Not really different in that respect. Although this one does look like he gets a lot lower when he shoots it and then takes the angle off. Oh, interesting. So now his opponent, you know, feinting the right hand, or the left hand, getting him to duck, and then getting ready to throw the left hook over the top. And that's really interesting because if David Lemieux would have countered with the jab off of that feinted left hand, he could have walked into that right hook. And that could have been a very big shot for his opponent. You know, but it's very interesting to see that David Lemieux's not being aggressive at all. You know, and obviously you only want to throw punches at your opponent when they're out of position, but Lemieux having a very difficult time getting his opponent out of position. Again, you know, being very susceptible to that lead left hand. You know, so that's going to be something that we're going to have to look out for when we watch the Billy Joe Saunders breakdown, is how often Billy Joe Saunders uses the lead left hand against orthodox opponents, as well as how often. Now, this is interesting too, because after he shoots it, boom, he immediately takes his right arm and controls David Lemieux's head while he turns out, right? And that stops him from taking any counter punches as well. So that's really good. But also, so in addition to looking for whether or not Billy Joe uses the lead left hand a lot, we're also going to have to look at whether he controls his opponent or he uses defensive responsibility when he turns out, and see how those might line up against David Lemieux. Because if he doesn't, we've seen that David Lemieux's looking to be in position to counter. Again, only looking to counter. And right there, that's a great example. So that shot doesn't land, right? And he doesn't control his opponent. Boom. And he eats a jab on the way out because he's not controlling David Lemieux, because he doesn't get his hands on him. He doesn't put him off balance. He allows David Lemieux to react exactly how he wants to, exactly how he's setting him up. Oh, did anything weird happen there? No, he just fell down. All right. Again, now that's interesting right there. Ducking down under the shot and then throwing a straight right hand. You know, I wonder if David Lemieux was thinking that it was going to be a 1-2, and he wanted to duck the jab and then move his head to the right or to his left, and then throw the right hand. Interesting. Ooh, come on, David Lemieux. What's up with you, bro? Oh, you stepped on his foot. As you can see in that little frame right there. Boop. He trips over him and almost falls down. Throws the 2 and not really a 3. And then not really another 2 right there. But David Lemieux not responding very well. I don't like that, to be honest. Oh, and again, his opponent throwing another shot over the top. And now, notice a lot of these shots, the ones that his opponent is not setting up, look at how easy it is for Lemieux to get away from them, right? None of them are really landing. You know, he's able to block them. You know, I wonder if the guy has like another tell that David Lemieux sees that I'm not seeing right now. But this is one of the problems with not setting your punches up. You know, your opponent always knows what to expect. And it's interesting to see that his opponent has kind of gotten away from the feinting, you know. So he feints the 1, and now David Lemieux knows that the 2 is coming, and he's easily able to get away from it and turn, but not able to open up any offense on his own. You know, I wonder how interesting, I wonder how the defensive responsibility of Joe Saunders really is compared to this guy. So throws the 1-2, right? And interestingly, he looks to control him with his other hand, not the hand that he's punching, not the hand where his weight is transferred, right? So if you notice what I'm talking about, throws the 1-2, transfers all his weight to his front leg, right? Now it's all on his right leg, right? As he's punching with his left hand. And then that's a perfect opportunity for him to put his arm, his left arm, onto David Lemieux from where it is right now, put it onto his shoulder blade, and then pivot and turn, rather than turning like this and trying to get your arm around his back, which will actually just get the referee to break you, because now you're behind your opponent, right? And you're not allowed to punch them when their back is turned to you, which is, you know, I agree with, I guess, but in mixed martial arts, if your opponent's able to spin and get behind you, they're able to take advantage of the fact that you have poor positioning, you know, and that's one of the very interesting things about like fighting a fighter like Floyd Mayweather, who constantly allows his opponents to turn their back or spin him like that, and by not turning and not taking an angle with you, it doesn't allow you to actually punch them. So he's able to mitigate the fact that you are able to take a positional advantage on him by the fact that he just doesn't look to counter it at all. He just waits for the referee to intervene. I know that a number of fighters have done that to him. Conor McGregor was doing that to him, and rather than trying to turn with him, he would just wait for the referee to break them, and he didn't have to worry about taking shots. But his opponent could really gain a positional advantage if he put his arm on him and then took a slight angle instead of this really huge angle where he comes out in a position where he's not able to punch David Lemieux. But so far, David Lemieux showing, you know, I don't want to say head movement, right, because he's waiting for his opponent to punch before he moves, but decent defensive responsibility in the light of his opponent's very honest offense. Now, this is a tell right here, so he's been able to see David Lemieux walk down, so he could, you know, shoot a jab like that and then walk him into a left uppercut if he felt like it. Very reminiscent of what Charlo just did to Erickson Lubin. Ooh, now what happened here? So he shoots that jab, and he's been very honest with it, right? And boom, he walks him into this left hook, right? And it doesn't land super cleanly. It kind of lands behind the ear. But look at this. This is really interesting, right? So he shoots that jab, right? Yeah, this is perfect right here. So his opponent shoots that jab, and he ducks down and puts all his weight on his right leg, right? Then his opponent shoots the jab, and he ducks down and puts all the weight on his right leg, right? And look at where his hand goes after he shoots it. He brings it down immediately, right? Doesn't even have his hands up. Like, he brings it back to guard, right? And then brings it back down again, right? Back to where his normal guard is. And now, when he shoots that jab to control that space, David Lemieux ducks down, puts his weight onto his right leg, and he does that while throwing a left hook. So adding in a counter to his normally offensive or his normally defensive postures to punches. Really interesting. And he's able to kind of, you know, get a faux knockdown right there might have caught him off guard, hit him behind the ear or whatever. But David Lemieux definitely thinks that he has his opponent hurt. And as you can tell when he steps in here and he doesn't move away from all these big shots, that he very well may have actually hurt him. Ooh, and then again, one of the downsides to leading with the shot without setting it up is David Lemieux is able to prepare for it and land a shot on the inside. And I can't tell super well if that shot lands, but it doesn't matter. It stops him in his tracks, and he's not able to take that positional advantage or turn or pivot off like he has been with every other lead left hand that he's thrown, which leads me to believe that he very well did have this guy hurt. Now again, very honest. He telegraphs the fact that he's winding up on this right hook right here, and David Lemieux is able to land a very huge straight right hand on him. Now this is really interesting because throughout the course of the entire round, David Lemieux didn't do shit. He didn't do fucking anything. He showed that he was trying to counter with his jabs, this and that. But what he was really doing was getting a look at his opponent and look for opportunities and timings to land a big shot. And he found that left hook that really put his opponent in all this trouble. So it'll be really interesting to see what kind of, and that's one of the traps that he was kind of setting for his opponent by ducking down like that. Again, using the same trap, ducking down from this shot, and then boom, walking him into that huge left hook that drops him ultimately. There is a right hand to the body after it, but very crafty from David Lemieux, right? Showing that even when he's not super aggressive, he has the capacity to walk you into shots and take advantage of you countering. And I don't know how much counterpunching we've seen in David Lemieux's fights, but as we saw during the course of this fight, David Lemieux could be losing for the first, 2 minutes and 15 seconds of the round and land one punch and steal the round 10-8. So let's go ahead and see if there are any highlights of the knockdown. Oh yeah, here it is. Oh man, that is just beautiful. So coming forward, and it's interesting too because if you have an active guard and you're moving your head a lot and you're rolling and you're slipping, you're not going to be able to get your opponent to throw punches at you as easily as this, right? His opponent just, very telegraphs his shot, right? He steps forward, shoots the jab out, and David Lemieux, basically traps him into throwing this shot, baits him into throwing it by standing still, Now, I wouldn't suggest this strategy against any high-level fighters because most high-level fighters use feints and use probes, and they set their punches up so that the first thing that you see coming is not usually actually their offense, And there are varying degrees to this, like, 3-4 rounds into a fight, if you've been trying to set your punches up too much and your opponent moves away, you'll stop setting your punches up because you don't have an opportunity to get offense off, right? Very similar to what happened with Andre Ward, or happened to Sergey Kovalev in the Andre Ward fights. Andre Ward was getting kind of schooled in terms of boxing and taking big shots especially when he got walked into that right hand in the second round of their first fight. And then Andre Ward said, okay, well, I know what he's doing when he's doing all that funny shit with his hands now, so I'll just take a step back. I'll move back. I won't allow him to set his punches up, And that's kind of another possibility for fighters to kind of take away that avenue of success for them, to take that ability away from them. Interestingly enough, I don't know how many of you watch UFC or mixed martial arts at all, but Cody Garbrandt was fighting TJ Dillashaw this weekend or last weekend, and TJ Dillashaw was doing an amazing job of trying to set his shots up, right? Very basic style feints, I would say, right? But in mixed martial arts, it's very difficult because the amount of offense is so varied. And I apologize for getting on this tangent. But in the first round, every time TJ Dillashaw would make a move or a slip or try to throw a probing hand, Cody Garbrandt would just move away and not engage him. And it stopped TJ Dillashaw from actually being able to set him up for a kick or a punch. And then in between rounds, his team was like, hey, not everything has to be set up. Don't set everything up. You know, your setups are just telegraphing them right now. Just kind of let some stuff go. And then the very next round, he just lets a fucking kick go and kicks Cody Garbrandt in the head and knocks him down, you know. So there are levels to this, and you always want to be playing on the level, on top of the level that your opponent's playing, right? So when he thinks that you're not setting your punches up, you want to set your punches up. When he thinks you're setting your punches up, you want to not set your punches up. You know, you always want to be one step ahead of your opponent in that regard. And I can't remember what the term is called, but it's used a lot in poker when leveling your opponent. And I don't remember what the theory is in poker theory. But it applies to anything in which you're playing a mind game with your opponent, no matter how convoluted and ridiculous the situation gets. But anyway, getting back into it. Boom. His opponent, you know. And the interesting thing about this is, look at how it protects him from the straight left hand as well, right? So he's covering both bases, whether it's a feinted jab into a left hand or a 1-2 or whatever. This posture that David Lemieux has actually telegraphed many times protects him from both of them, right? Now, he could have given him the old Jermell Charlo, where he feints the lead hand and then comes with an uppercut and walks him into the shot, in which he could have landed a great right hand, but he wasn't paying attention to how his opponent was reacting to what he was doing in this regard. And in spite of the early success that he had in paying attention to that and setting him up with that one left hand, he got away from that all during the rest of the round, and was easily able to, and Lemieux was easily able to walk him into this big shot right here. And, you know, for all intents and purposes, that was the punch that dropped him. Look at him just sprawled out right there. But great job from Lemieux here. Boom. Just look at how he just throws all his goddamn weight into that, turns his hips all the way, and just what a crushing left hand right there. Great job. Now we're going to go ahead. Oh, Jesus. Okay, we'll look at it one more time. Now this is definitely going to be something that we're going to look for when we watch the fight with Chris Eubank and how susceptible he is to counterpunching. As it's very interesting that David Lemieux isn't looking to be aggressive against his opponents, against his left-handed opponent. Now his opponent very predictably, right, shooting, you know, just opening up with the shot. You know, David Lemieux, again, with that same technique, right? Just dipping down away from the jab or the left hand, right? But using the same defensive posture as he did to get away from the jab, to get away from the left hand, you know, which I don't agree with. But being very predictable in that manner. So we'll have to see in what ways what's his name? Billy Joe Saunders' offense is varied enough that he might be able to walk David Lemieux into shots for being this predictable. Now, this is really interesting, right? So, his opponent, look at how he has all his weight on his back leg, right? And he's going to shoot the jab. Come on, motherfucker. He shoots the jab, but he doesn't lean into it this time, right? He doesn't lean into it. He's not trying to set him up for a 1-2 and then take an angle or pivot on him. He just shoots it, and then he's just baiting the left hook from David Lemieux, right? Because David Lemieux has kind of telegraphed, oh, this is what I'm looking to do, right? So we'll see if now that his opponent knows that's exactly how he's trying to set up his offense and trying to land punches, we'll see what ways Fernando Guerrero makes adjustments, and we'll also see what adjustments that David Lemieux makes to those adjustments. But, ooh, interesting. So another lead left hand just rocking him, you know, and it's not a huge punch, not necessarily rocking him, you know, but it's a great shot from Guerrero landing on David Lemieux. And that might be a significant source of offense for Billy Joe Saunders. And again, reacting on the feints in the same exact way, you know, so not looking great in that regard for David Lemieux. Now, this is a lot of offense right here. What exactly happened here to allow David Lemieux to get those shots off? Oh, okay. So I think his foot got stuck. So he tried to move his foot. And I'm not sure if I'm not sure if Guerrero was trying to shoot a punch or he was just feinting him, but you can see their feet kind of get stuck on each other. I'm not sure if he steps on it or what, but anyway, once he gets him out of position and he's able to close the distance, David Lemieux just going ham on him with that left hand, you know. Controls his head, shoots the body shot, shoots the uppercut. Man, what a great shot. Misses the right hand by a mile. I'm not sure if he lands that left hand, but just all that power in those shots right there. And again, David Lemieux, very predictable, right? Ducking under the shot, ducking probably way too far right there, and then giving away his hand right here as his opponent feints him, and then he feints the left hook. And again, the same shot. He misses it this time. And look at how he's able to get under the left hand again of Fernando Guerrero's. You know, I wonder when Fernando Guerrero is going to start setting that shot up and take advantage of the fact that David Lemieux always puts his head down and throw an uppercut or throw the left hand, you know, low, right? Throw it somewhere else where David Lemieux is putting his head, you know, rather than just shooting the shot over his head every single time. So that'll be something that we look for from Billy Joe Saunders, is his ability to adjust his punch trajectory and walk his opponents into shots as well. Oh man, so interesting. So David Lemieux now not looking to duck the shot, but trying to catch the lead left hand, right, and then walk him into a left hook. So it's really interesting that he's only looking to counter with the left hook, though. You know, I think that Chris Eubank tried to counter the jab with the left hook as well in the first couple rounds of their fight. But I think that Billy Joe Saunders did a pretty good job of avoiding it. So I wonder if this is going to be a big problem for David Lemieux, because it's very limited offense. You know, notice the only time he's thrown any flurries have been when he's gotten his opponent against the ropes or they've tangled up their feet. And then also the only other times he's actually landed any punches were the left hook when he's countering Fernando Guerrero. And Fernando Guerrero doing a good job right there, you know, getting away from David Lemieux. And, you know, I want to point this out too. People might say, you know, oh, David Lemieux's not cutting the ring off, right? But look at how he's moving laterally. All right, don't disappoint me, David Lemieux. I'm about to stick up for you, you bum. So it looks like he's following him right there, but as soon as his opponent starts moving, he moves completely laterally to cut him off and get him against the ropes, right? And then he shoots that shot and he allows him to escape, right? But he is cutting the ring off. As you can see, he goes from there, moving, not so much there. Whoops. So from here, and his opponent's circling, and notice how he starts moving to the middle of the ring, to the south side of the middle of the ring to cut the ring off from his opponent. So it's not like David Lemieux is not cutting the ring off, right? So here he is here, now walking straight up. Now look at how he moves. Now look at how he moves from here. He's going to move to the red band at the north ropes, right? He moves from here straight to the red band to try to cut the ropes off and catch him on the line. You know, so it's not like David Lemieux's not cutting the ropes off. His opponent's just giving him good movement, right? And again, one of the problems with not setting your punches up, you just know that it's going to be an honest shot, and he's able to block it and then roll under the other shots and stop David Lemieux from actually cutting the ring off. So we're not going to say that he doesn't know how to cut the ring off when we watch the Chris Eubank fight. David Lemieux looking to set up under the jab. Oh, and again, right? His opponent feints the... Okay, now his opponent is making adjustments. So he feints the straight left hand, transfers his weight, gets Lemieux to commit to a left hook, and then counters over the top with his own right hook, which doesn't land, but it shows that his opponent is making adjustments for the very predictable Lemieux. Nope, not landing. But again, one of the problems is that after he throws those shots, you know, it's interesting because every other time that he's thrown punches, right, when he leads with the lead left hand, he's able to take an angle and move out. But this time he just moves into the corner. Oh man, does he fucking land a punch there? It looks like he does, but I can't really tell. Maybe they'll show a highlight of it. But his opponent's showing that, you know, this is exactly the reason why you need to control your opponent after you throw punches, right? Boom. And now he needs to close the distance and shoulder up with him, right? He should, in theory, already have lead foot dominance, but he should be looking to get his arm and his shoulder on to David Lemieux so he can turn and pivot him out, right? But he doesn't. He winds up in the corner. And it does look like he takes a big shot right there. You can see his head kind of tilt. Oh, interesting. So now his opponent's shooting the 1-2, and then David Lemieux coming up with a right hook to the body. Now, this also might be another adjustment from Guerrero, right? As he doesn't shoot this shot over David Lemieux's head, he shoots it right into his head, and it kind of grazes his head and moves down. But David Lemieux making a great adjustment here because he realizes that he's getting picked off with the left hook, so he starts going to the body with the right hand. Very interesting. So that'll be an interesting wrinkle to pay attention to when we watch the fight with Chris Eubank. So feinting him and walking him into that jab. And again, you know, this is one of the problems with being honest with your punches, right? Every time that you move your arm, if you're throwing a punch, it's going to make you very easy to counter. So we're going to have to look very closely at how well Billy Joe Saunders hides his punches and sets them up. Oh man, beautiful shot from Lemieux. Now he's finally finding a time in which he can catch the straight left hand and then turn that into his own offense with the left hook. You know, I kind of want to look at this guy and get a sense of how you know he's going to shoot a punch. You know, and I think what it is, he takes a small step with his front leg. So just watch real quick. He takes that small step right there, and David Lemieux knows instantly that maybe that's the tell for his opponent shooting the straight left hand. Because he also takes that step when he shoots the jab, but I think he shoots the jab at the same time, and seeing that it's not a jab coming, he's able to time that left hand. So good work from Lemieux for paying attention to the feet as well. Oh, man, and then he's able to just walk him into all these big shots while he's out of position and hurt. And we don't really need to, like, break this down, you know. He's kind of just going ham on him. And not even in the most responsible way either. But interesting stuff. I kind of got to pause it real quick. I don't want the video to get flagged by fucking Showtime, because if I play too much at once, they'll be like, oh, he's just distributing the fight. There's no reason for this video to even exist. It's already for free on our channel. He's just taking away like 30 viewers from us. And again, this is the consequence of not setting your punches up, right? He's easily able to get under that shot. And I don't think David Lemieux lands anything. I think the guy's just kind of tangled up. Oh, man, look at his eye, dude. And again, you know, this is the consequence of David Lemieux landing a big shot on you. This is really interesting, you know, because we can see the kind of power that David Lemieux has. Oh, does he land a shot? Oh, he does kind of walk him into that straight. I'm not super sure it lands. But this is really interesting because, again, walking him into that left hook. You know, David Lemieux showing that, you know, he trained that very well, that he's very on point with it, and is able to land that over and over again. And drop him again. You know, very interesting. You know, so we'll have to look at Billy Joe Saunders' ability to not be lazy, you know, because David Lemieux, he's always coming forward. He's always putting the pressure on. and he never wants to give up. You know, his coach threw in the towel that one time against Marco Antonio Rubio, but even against Gennady Golovkin, he wasn't giving up. You know, he tried his best. He did everything that he could until he was, basically knocked out. And again, not really anything to break down. Hard punches are hard punches. God fucking damn, though. Look at these fucking right hands. Look at that shit. Just incredible. Huge puncher, man. Oh, and for all of you guys that are interested, David Lemieux has training videos online of when he was a little kid. I used to watch them when I was learning to box with his coach, Rick. I don't fucking know the dude's name. I don't remember his coach's name, but, David Lemieux, just type that in, David Lemieux training or David Lemieux boxing instructions or something. I should probably have Googled that before I told you about it, just so I could find the videos. But it's David Lemieux as a little kid, as a Canadian champion and Canadian amateur champion, teaching people how to throw punches, and this is the kind of work you get from it. You're not born a puncher, I promise you. All that shit that Freddie Roach says, nothing against Freddie Roach, but he's an idiot. All that stuff, you can't teach punching. Yeah, you can. You just got to work at it. Trust me. When I first started boxing, my right hand was garbage, man. The shit was it was a floppy cock, and I had no fucking power in it. And it's not like the greatest power now, but it's way better, and it's pretty comparable to my left hand. But anyway, third round. So far, David Lemieux only leading when he gets his opponent already out of position or on the ropes, or if they're already hurt, but not actually looking to take an active role in landing punches on his opponents. And again, looking for that left hook, able to get away from all of his opponent's offense. But a very predictable offense from David Lemieux. Ooh. Shoots here, shoots there, and then tries to walk him into a lead right hand. Interesting too, because he hides it a little bit by feinting to that left side first. But his opponent's able to see it coming. All right, so David Lemieux. Now this is exactly what we saw David Lemieux do in the first round, but he wasn't able to keep up with his opponent. His opponent was able to circle away from him and stop that punch from landing. But in this instance, his opponent is slowed down enough that we can kind of get to see a little bit of the offense that David Lemieux is looking to set up when he is able to lead. And it's very similar to Errol Spence in what he's looking to do, right? Errol Spence shoots 2 jabs usually. David Lemieux shooting 3 right here, taking lead foot dominance and then laying into his straight right hand. His opponent's circling to his left, so he throws a left hook. And then David Lemieux not really doing much of anything. I think he's waiting for his opponent to open up so he can shoot that counter left hook. But notices that he's not looking to, that his opponent's not even looking to, so he starts to open up with some shots. And again, right, look at how he gets his arm all the way around his opponent, right, and then comes up right here, but he's not looking to throw punches, right? That's exactly what you don't want to be doing when you take angles. You do want to be in position to punch and take advantage of the angle that you take on your opponent. Oh, interesting. So his opponent's showing that he's watching him, so he shoots the 1, then the 2, and then counters him with the straight right hand before David Lemieux can let off his 3rd jab. And it's not the cleanest counter. To be honest, I'm not sure it even lands. David Lemieux does look like he gets under it. But good for his opponent for picking up on those patterns. Not bad right there. Shoots the left hook, right? And then this is what I mean, getting your arm on your opponent right here. Boom, right there. That's where you want your arm when you're turning out so that you can take a complete angle. And also you stop your opponent from turning on you. Even though it was with the wrong arm, to be fair. But again, you know, his opponent's just kind of slowing down now. Not able to as readily get away from him. And David Lemieux is very able to kind of open up on him and let his shots go. Oh, interesting. Oh, no, he misses. And then David Lemieux misses wildly and falls off balance. I thought that was going to be a big shot for a second. And his opponent can't see. Too much blood in his eye. We're not going to look at what the doctor says about it. I don't think it's over yet. Okay. Oh, interesting. All right. So his opponent comes out, shoots to the side, takes an angle on him, and tries to catch him with a straight left hand, right? Now, interesting, right? He knows that the fight's almost over because of the blood in his eye, so he comes out and tries to throw a haymaker. And it doesn't work. And his opponent doesn't know what to do in these situations. Now, I kind of want to talk about that. You know, that might be the more interesting thing to do than to watch David Lemieux just pound on this guy who doesn't know what he's doing, right? But David Lemieux shoots that shot, right? Now he shoots this shot. But what his opponent should be doing from here after he gets under this shot is, you know, probably hold, right? Get a hold of David Lemieux, right? Use his right arm to smother David Lemieux's left arm, right? Either by holding it or pressing his forearm on it so he can't come back with another shot. He's definitely getting a little bit too low already for his defensive posture to not be coming back with the counter. But from here, you know, he could actually take another angle, take his lead foot, step outside of David's lead foot, and then pivot and turn out, right? But he's not doing any of that stuff. He's just sitting in the corner, right? From here, right, he throws that left hook. He could, or that right hook. He could step into David Lemieux's guard, right, and take his lead leg and put it in between David Lemieux's lead leg, and then smother him with the right hand that he just threw and stop him from coming back with counters, and look to tie up his David Lemieux's right arm. But again, he just stays in front of him out of position and allows David Lemieux to tee off on him. Oh. He does catch David Lemieux with a great left hook right there. Boom. So David Lemieux trying to control him right there, and then opens up really well, or really wide right there, and walks into a shot. But boom. Now David Lemieux is supposed to be controlling his opponent with his forearm, pushing him off balance, but kind of getting a little lazy in that regard. Even though, if you look at the rest of it, he does a pretty decent job of controlling his opponents, right? So getting his forearms on him, then creating space with his right arm to throw that left hook. Whoops, my video's kind of melding together. But starting from right here, he throws that left hook, this right hand, then he looks to push. Oh, no. All right, so after he throws that left hook, he puts his left arm onto his opponent, waits for him to create space so he can throw that two-piece. Boom, boom, throws that right hand. And now after he throws that right hand and misses, he needs to control his opponent and push his head up with his forearm, and lift his head all the way up to create space so he can throw his left hook. But he doesn't. He stops right here, and his opponent's able to land a shot on him because he lets go of his control before he's ready to punch. Right there, not bad control right there. Controlling his head on the top right there and finding space for that left hook on the inside. Oh, man. Creates space with his forearm right there and walks him into this right hook. You know, not bad. So throws that left hook. After he throws the left hook, pushes his forearm onto his head like he's supposed to, creates space for that right uppercut, and drops him again. You know, so David Lemieux, you know, pretty wild in the clinch. You know, I don't want to say clinch, but pretty wild inside. Not setting his shots up super well on the outside, but once he gets on the inside, you know, pretty decent. You know, decent control on the inside, creating space. You know, it looked like he was letting go a little bit too soon. That might just be because he smells blood and he knows that the fight's almost over. But it might also be like an actual problem in his game, right? An inability to set his shots up on the inside. We'll see a little bit more of this right here. Feinting him, throwing that left hook, controlling, yeah. So beautiful controls him with the forearm, keeping him inside, and then walks him into that right uppercut. You know, not bad. I wish they showed some of the other highlights in slow-mo and not just the knockout, because we got a pretty good look at that one. But a good job, you know. So far, the things that we learned from David Lemieux in this fight, not very good at setting his shots up on the outside, you know. He's looking to counter, and he can counter the straight left hand and the jab, both with the left hook. But it's very predictable, you know. And if Billy Joe Saunders is any good at picking up on patterns, it might be something that he's able to exploit and bait David Lemieux into doing so that he can land his own offense. Because, to be honest, David Lemieux really didn't look to set up any other shots, you know. He threw a couple right hands off of the triple lead left hand, but even those are very easy to pick off. You know, it's not really setting your opponents up because you don't know how they're going to react to it. And as you saw, when he did it, the triple lead hand, his opponent was able to kind of walk him into a straight left hand. Other things that Lemieux kind of had problems with early in the fight was his opponent's lead left hand, you know, until he picked up the rhythm of it and was able to start countering it with the left hand by picking up the tell. And in this case, it was his opponent stepping with his punch every time. So he would step with the jab, and that was what was allowing him to counter the jab. And then he would step with the lead left hand, and he was able to counter the lead left hand in that regard. Anyway, the next video we'll be doing is Chris Eubank Jr. Versus Billy Joe Saunders to get a feel for the skills and tactics of Billy Joe Saunders. And then we're going to maybe do some keys to victories to kind of see how we think the fight between them two is going to play out. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks, guys.